The rain fell mercilessly over to Boston, turning the evening streets into a maze of murky puddles and blurred lights. Against this gloomy backdrop, a small figure darted between parked cars, her pink raincoat a splash of color in the gray urban landscape. 6-year-old Emma Davis clutched a white envelope to her chest, as if it contained her very heart, protecting it from the downpour with her tiny body. Her breath came in sharp, frightened gasps as she glanced over her shoulder. The shadow was still there, tall, menacing, closing in. Emma ducked beneath a delivery truck, pressing herself against the wet pavement, not caring about the dirty water soaking through her clothes. Her blonde hair clung to her face, partially obscuring the small cut on her forehead that had stopped bleeding but still stung in the rain. "Please, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the drumming of raindrops on metal above her. The envelope, now slightly damp despite her efforts, bore the words, "Urgent for Michael Reynolds, Reynolds Tower, Boston," in her mother's careful handwriting. Emma's heart pounded as footsteps approached, then stopped near the truck. She held her breath, remembering her mother's words from that morning. "You have 24 hours to find him, sweetheart, before it's too late. He's the only one who can help us now." The footsteps moved away, fading into the ambient noise of the city. Emma counted to 60 as her mother had taught her, then carefully peered out. The street looked clear. Gathering her courage, she crawled out and ran toward the towering skyscraper that dominated the skyline ahead, Reynolds Tower. 40 stories above the rain-soaked streets, Michael Reynolds stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his executive boardroom, watching the storm roll over his city. At 58, Michael cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-streaked dark hair and penetrating blue eyes that had stared down countless business opponents. His custom-tailored suit couldn't hide the athletic build he maintained through rigorous morning workouts, a discipline that had helped him manage stress since the accident. "The Henderson proposal needs your final approval, Michael," said Jessica Hayes, sliding a folder across the polished mahogany table. At 42, Reynolds Enterprises' CFO was striking auburn hair, perfectly styled emerald green eyes calculating her fitted designer dress, accentuating her figure while maintaining professional decorum. Michael turned from the window, his face a mask of controlled emotion. "The numbers don't add up, Jessica. The risk assessment is incomplete." Jessica's smile never faltered. "I've adjusted the projections. The profit margins are now well within acceptable parameters." For whom? Michael's voice had the edge that made junior executives quake. "For the shareholders, or for the families who'd be displaced when we demolish those apartments?" A flicker of annoyance crossed Jessica's face, quickly replaced by practiced concern. "Michael, we've discussed this. Business decisions can't always be personal. The board expects... The board expects responsible leadership," Michael interrupted, returning to the table and flipping through the proposal. "Revise it. Find a way to relocate the residents without disrupting their lives. I won't sign off until you do." The other executives shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Only Jessica held his gaze, a silent battle of wills playing out between them. "Meeting adjourned," Michael announced, gathering his papers. As the room cleared, Jessica lingered, approaching him with the deliberate grace of a woman who knew her power. "You're tense," she observed, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Dinner at Marcello's tonight. We could discuss the Henderson situation more privately." Michael's gaze drifted to the bar cart in the corner of the boardroom, to the crystal decanter filled with amber liquid that had become too familiar a comfort in recent years. For a moment, the memory of screeching tires and shattered glass flooded his senses, the accident that took his wife and son a decade ago, leaving him alive, but hollowed out. "Not tonight," he said, shrugging off her touch. "I have work to finish." Jessica's smile remained, but her eyes cooled. "You've been distant lately, Michael. Is something wrong?" Before he could answer, his intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reynolds," came the voice of Sarah Wilson, his executive assistant. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation in the lobby that requires your attention." "What situation?" Michael frowned. "A child, sir. A little girl. She's insisting on seeing you personally. She says it's urgent." Jessica scoffed. "Security can handle that. Some publicity stunt, no doubt." Michael hesitated, his hand hovering over the intercom button. Something in Sarah's voice, concern perhaps, gave him pause. "Sir," Sarah continued, lowering her voice, "the child appears distressed. She's soaking wet and says her mother is dying. She has a letter addressed specifically to you." Michael's finger pressed the button. Bring her up, Sarah. Michael, Jessica protested. You can't seriously. I said bring her up, he repeated firmly. Jessica's expression hardened momentarily before she composed herself. Fine, I'll see you tomorrow then. She collected her things, her movements precise and controlled. At the door, she paused. Don't forget about the Westridge contract. The deadline is Friday. After she left, Michael poured himself a glass of water, instead of whiskey, a small victory in a private battle. He moved to his office next door, a spacious room dominated by a massive desk and walls decorated with awards business magazine covers featuring his success and architectural renderings of his buildings. Conspicuously absent were family photos or personal touches. This was a shrine to achievement, not happiness. The elevator chimed its arrival on the executive floor. Sarah Wilson, a competent woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes behind practical glasses, stepped out gently guiding a small, bedraggled child. Mr. Reynolds, this is Emma, Sarah introduced softly. Emma, this is Mr. Reynolds. The girl stood frozen in the doorway of Michael's office, rainwater dripping from her coat onto the plush carpet. She was tiny, all blonde hair and big eyes and a pale face with a small cut on her forehead. Her pink raincoat was several sizes too large, the sleeves rolled up to free her hands, one of which clutched the promise envelope. Michael found himself kneeling to meet her eye level, an instinctive gesture he hadn't performed since his son died. Hello, Emma, he said, his usual commanding tone softening. Emma took a tentative step forward, her eyes startlingly blue, fixed on his face with an intensity that was unnerving in one so young. Are you Mr. Reynolds? The most important Mr. Reynolds? I'm Michael Reynolds, he confirmed. Emma nodded solemnly. Mom said you would be tall and have serious eyes. She said you build buildings that touch the sky. Michael glanced at Sarah, who stood watching with undisguised curiosity. Thank you, Sarah. That will be all for now. After his assistant reluctantly departed, Michael gestured to a chair. Would you like to sit down, Emma? You look cold. Emma approached cautiously, climbing onto the leather chair that dwarfed her small frame. Up close, Michael could see she was shivering slightly. My secretary could bring you some hot chocolate, he offered. Emma shook her head. No time. Mom said I only have 24 hours. She thrust the envelope toward him. This is for you. It's very urgent. Mom wrote it yesterday when she was having a good day. Michael accepted the envelope, noting the familiar handwriting with a strange tightness in his chest. Your mother's name is Rebecca Davis, Emma said, watching his reaction carefully. She's very sick. The doctors say, her voice caught. They say she might go to heaven soon. The name hit Michael like a physical blow. Rebecca Davis. 7 years since he'd heard that name spoken aloud. 7 years of determined forgetting, of burying memories beneath work and whiskey and the calculated affection of women like Jessica. How did you get here, Emma? He asked, turning the envelope in his hands, not yet ready to open it. I took 2 buses, she said with a hint of pride. Mom showed me the map before, but then the red-haired lady was following me, so I had to run and hide. Red-haired lady, Michael frowned. Someone was following you. Emma nodded vigorously. She came to our apartment last night. I heard her arguing with Mom. She tried to take Mom's letter, but Mom wouldn't give it to her. Her small hands twisted in her lap. Mom said she's dangerous and works for someone who doesn't want you to know about me. Michael's gaze sharpened. No, what about you, Emma? The girl met his eyes directly, and in that moment Michael felt a jolt of recognition so profound it made him catch his breath. Those eyes, the exact shade of cobalt blue that had marked the Reynolds family for generations. His father's eyes, his own eyes, eyes he'd last seen in his son's face. That I'm your daughter, Emma said simply. The world seemed to stop. Michael stared at the child before him, really seeing her now. The shape of her face, the determined set of her small jaw, the intelligence in those familiar eyes. With hands that were not quite steady, he opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, the paper of good quality, but well handled, as if read many times before being sent. Michael, if you're reading this, it means Emma has successfully delivered my letter. I never wanted to involve our daughter in any of this, but circumstances have forced my hand. The doctors have given me weeks, perhaps days. Before I go, I need to ensure Emma's safety, and you are the only one I can trust with this burden. 7 years ago, you believed I betrayed you with Thomas Caldwell. You saw photographs, heard witness accounts, and received what appeared to be irrefutable evidence of my infidelity. I swore to you then, as I swear to you now, none of it was true. The photos were manipulated, the witnesses paid, the evidence fabricated. Jessica Hayes orchestrated everything. She wanted you, your company, your legacy. When she discovered I was pregnant with your child, she became desperate. She threatened me, Michael. When threats didn't work, she produced those fabricated materials. I tried to tell you the truth, but you refused to see me, to hear me out. I left Boston to protect our unborn child. Emma was born 7 months after our separation, your daughter in every way. Look at her eyes, Michael. Look at her and see the truth that no lie can conceal. Jessica has discovered Emma's existence. Last month, she approached me with an offer money in exchange for my silence and departure from the country. When I refused, the threats began again. Now my illness has left me vulnerable and Emma in danger. I ask nothing for myself. My time is nearly gone. But for Emma, our daughter, I beg you to look past your anger at me. Keep her safe from Jessica's machinations. She deserves a father, and you deserve to know your child. The evidence of Jessica's deception is in a safety deposit box at First National Bank box number 713. The key is taped to the back of the photograph Emma carries in her backpack. I'm sorry for the years lost between us. I'm sorry you missed her first steps, her first words. I'm sorry I couldn't make you believe me 7 years ago. With love, despite everything, Rebecca. Michael lowered the letter, his vision blurring. The memory of Rebecca's face, earnest, tear-streaked, pleading, as he coldly dismissed her explanations 7 years ago. The rage he'd felt at her perceived betrayal. The relief when Jessica had appeared to offer comfort, understanding, a shoulder to cry on. Mr. Reynolds, Emma's small voice broke through his thoughts. Are you okay? Michael looked at the child, his child sitting patiently in a chair too big for her feet dangling above the floor. She'd removed her wet raincoat to reveal a faded blue dress beneath, worn but clean. Around her neck hung a small gold locket. That's a pretty necklace, he said, buying time to collect himself. Emma touched it gently. Mom gave it to me. It has your picture in bud from before. Before everything fell apart. Before Jessica. Before the rage and whiskey and loneliness. May I see it, he asked. Emma hesitated, then nodded carefully, removing the locket and handing it to him. Michael opened it with fingers that didn't feel like his own. Inside was indeed his photograph. Younger. Smiling, his arm around Rebecca at some forgotten social function. The man in that photo looked like a stranger, now happy, unburdened by loss and regret. Emma, how old are you? He asked, though he already knew the answer from Rebecca's letter. 6 3/4, she answered promptly. My birthday is January 12th. The timing aligned perfectly. Emma would have been conceived in the final weeks of his relationship with Rebecca before the devastating evidence of her infidelity appeared. Michael's phone buzzed insistently, Jessica calling. He silenced it without answering. Does your mother know you've come to see me? He asked, returning the locket. Emma nodded, slipping the necklace back around her neck. She helped me practice the bus route yesterday, but she doesn't know about the red-haired lady. I didn't want to worry her because the medicine makes her sleepy. Michael pressed his intercom. Sarah, please come in. His assistant appeared almost immediately, as if she'd been hovering nearby. Sarah, I need you to cancel my appointments for the rest of the day, and please bring a first aid kit for Emma's forehead. Sarah's eyes widened slightly in surprise. Michael Reynolds never canceled appointments, but she nodded. Right away, sir. When they were alone again, Michael knelt before Emma. I'd like to meet your mother, Emma. Would that be all right? Emma's face lit up, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Yes, Mom will be so happy. She talks about you all the time. Then her expression darkened. But what about the red-haired lady? She might be watching our apartment. Don't worry about that, Michael said, surprised by the protectiveness he already felt toward this child. We'll be careful. Sarah returned with the first aid kit, helping Emma clean the small cut on her forehead, while Michael made several quiet phone calls. First to his security team, instructing them to sweep the building perimeter and prepare his car. Then to Dr. James Anderson, his personal physician and trusted friend, explaining the situation in terse, guarded language. While Emma ate a sandwich Sarah had thoughtfully provided, Michael examined the letter again, his mind racing. Could it be true? Had Jessica ambitious calculating, Jessica orchestrated such an elaborate deception, the woman he'd allowed into his life, his home, his company for 7 years. As implausible as it seemed, Michael had learned through decades in business to trust his instincts. Something about Rebecca's letter rang true. And something about Emma's eyes, those unmistakable Reynolds eyes cut through years of bitterness and doubt. "Ready to go see your mom?" he asked, helping Emma back into her still damp raincoat. Emma nodded eagerly, slipping her small hand naturally into his as they walked toward the elevator. The simple gesture of trust tightened something in Michael's chest. In the private elevator, descending to the underground parking garage, Emma looked up at him. "Are you going to help Mom get better?" Michael couldn't bring himself to offer false hope. "I'm going to try, Emma. I'll make sure she gets the very best doctors." "Mom says sometimes even the best doctors can't fix everything," Emma said with the terrible wisdom of children who've grown up too fast. "But she says what matters is being brave together." The elevator doors opened to reveal Michael's waiting car, a sleek black Bentley, with his longtime driver and head of security, Frank Martinez, standing alert beside it. "Mr. Reynolds." Frank nodded, his professional demeanor slipping as he noticed Emma. "And who's this young lady?" "This is Emma," Michael said simply. "Emma, this is Frank. He's going to drive us to your home." Frank opened the rear door, and Michael helped Emma into the car, securing her seatbelt before sliding in beside her. "Address, sir?" Frank asked as he took the driver's seat. Emma recited her address in a clear voice: an apartment in Dorchester, one of Boston's working-class neighborhoods, and worlds away from Michael's penthouse in Back Bay. As they pulled out of the garage, Michael noticed Emma anxiously watching the rearview mirrors. "Looking for something?" he asked gently. "Making sure the red-haired lady isn't following," she explained. "She has a silver car." Michael exchanged glances with Frank in the mirror. His driver nodded imperceptibly, adjusting his route to include several unnecessary turns, a standard counter-surveillance measure. The rain had eased to a gentle drizzle by the time they reached Emma's neighborhood. The contrast between Reynolds Tower and this aging apartment building, with its crumbling brick facade, couldn't have been starker. Michael felt a pang of something like guilt as he realized Rebecca had been raising his daughter, if Emma was indeed his daughter, in such modest circumstances while he lived in luxury. "It's the third floor," Emma said as they approached the building. "There's no elevator. Mom says it's good exercise, but it's hard when she's tired." Michael frowned, imagining a sick woman climbing these stairs. "Does your mother have help, a nurse or home health aide?" Emma shook her head. "Just Mrs. Wilson next door. She checks on us sometimes and brings soup." As they approached the building entrance, Michael noticed the security door was slightly ajar, the lock appearing damaged. "Emma, wait here with Frank for a moment," Michael instructed, a note of authority entering his voice. "But Mom," Emma began to protest. "Frank will keep you safe," Michael assured her. "I just want to check something first." Frank placed a protective hand on Emma's shoulder, his other hand discreetly moving toward the weapon Michael knew he carried. Michael approached the damaged door, cautiously pushing it open. The small lobby was empty, but he immediately noticed signs of a struggle: an overturned plant stand, soil scattered across the worn linoleum floor. His concern mounting, Michael took the stairs two at a time, following Emma's directions to apartment 3B. The door was ajar, just like the building entrance. Michael paused, listening. Silence. He pushed the door open slowly. "Rebecca," he called softly. The apartment was a small but neat, a combined living room and kitchen with two doors presumably leading to bedrooms. Signs of disturbance were evident here too: cushions askew, a lamp knocked over, papers scattered across a small desk in the corner. "Rebecca," he called again, moving cautiously through the space. A weak voice responded from one of the bedrooms. "Who's there, please?" "Emma." Michael moved quickly to the bedroom door, pushing it open to find a scene that stopped him cold. Rebecca Davis lay in a narrow bed, propped up on pillows, oxygen tubing in her nose, connected to a small concentrator beside the bed. She was painfully thin, her once vibrant chestnut hair now dull and sparse from what Michael assumed was chemotherapy. Yet despite the ravages of illness, he recognized her immediately: the high cheekbones, the determined chin, the expressive eyes now wide with fear. "Michael," she whispered, disbelief coloring her voice. "You came—" "Emma found me," he said, moving to her bedside. "Rebecca, what happened here?" The door was forced open. "Jessica's associate," Rebecca said, her breathing labored. "A woman with red hair. She came looking for the evidence, tried to take my keys. She gestured weakly toward the bedside table where a small drawer hung open, its contents disturbed. Are you hurt? Michael asked, noticing a bruise forming on her wrist. Rebecca shook her head. Just frightened. Where's Emma? Is she safe? She's with my security downstairs, Michael assured her. I wanted to make sure it was safe before bringing her up. Relief flooded Rebecca's face, followed quickly by caution. You read my letter? Yes. And you believe me? Hope and doubt warred in her expression. Before Michael could answer, small footsteps pattered across the living room. Mom, Emma's voice called out. Mom, I found him. I found Mr. Reynolds. Michael turned to see Emma in the doorway, having apparently given Frank the slip. She rushed past Michael to her mother's bedside, carefully climbing onto the bed to hug Rebecca. Emma, Rebecca scolded gently, you were supposed to wait downstairs. Frank said I could come up, Emma fibbed unconvincingly. Mom, Reynolds is going to help you get better. Rebecca's eyes met Michael's over their daughter's head. Is that true? Michael studied Rebecca's face, searching for deception and finding only exhaustion, pain, and a flicker of the same strength he remembered from years ago. Then he looked at Emma with her Reynolds eyes and determined chin, clinging to her mother with fierce protectiveness. In that moment, something shifted in Michael's world. Whether or not every word of Rebecca's letter was true, and he still had doubts, he couldn't walk away from this. From them. Yes, he said firmly, I'm going to help. First, we need to get you both somewhere safe. This apartment isn't secure, and you need medical attention. Frank appeared in the doorway, slightly chagrined at having lost track of Emma. Sir, the perimeter is clear for now, but we shouldn't linger. Michael nodded. Rebecca, is there anything essential you need to take with you? Medications, documents. Rebecca pointed to a small duffel bag in the corner. Emma's emergency bag. I prepared it last week just in case. Her eyes filled with tears. I wasn't sure you would believe us, but I hoped. Mom's medicine is in the bathroom cabinet, Emma added helpfully, and her special pillow. She needs it for her back. Michael gave Frank instructions to collect these items while he helped Rebecca prepare to leave. The oxygen concentrator was portable, and Rebecca assured him she could manage short distances with a walker. As Frank gathered the essentials, Michael knelt beside Rebecca's bed, lowering his voice so Emma couldn't hear from where she was helping Frank. Rebecca, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Is Emma truly my daughter? Rebecca met his gaze steadily. Yes, Michael. I've never been with anyone else. You can run any test you want, DNA, blood type, genetic markers. She is yours. Look at her. Really look at her. She has your eyes, your determination, even your frown when she's concentrating. Michael had noticed these similarities himself. And Jessica, are you certain she was behind the fabricated evidence? I found out too late, Rebecca admitted. After Emma was born, Thomas Caldwell contacted me. He was in financial trouble and admitted Jessica had paid him to pose for those photographs. By then you were already with her, and I was afraid of what she might do if I came forward. Her hand unconsciously moved to protect her throat, where Michael now noticed a faint scar. Did she hurt you? He asked, his voice dangerously low. Rebecca hesitated. Not directly. She hired people. I received warnings, a slashed tire, a break-in. Then one night a man with a knife made it very clear what would happen to my bastard child if I ever contacted you. She glanced at Emma, ensuring she wasn't listening. I took Emma and left Boston the next day. We've moved 3 times since then, always looking over our shoulder. Until you got sick, Michael concluded. Rebecca nodded. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. The prognosis isn't good, Michael. I need to know Emma will be safe when I'm gone. The raw honesty in her voice struck Michael deeply. Whether or not he fully believed the conspiracy she outlined, her concern for their daughter was undeniably genuine. We're ready, sir, Frank announced, holding the duffel bag and a small backpack that likely contained Rebecca's medications. Michael helped Rebecca to her feet, supporting her slight weight easily. She was alarmingly frail, her once vibrant presence diminished by illness. Yet there was still a spark in her eyes as she looked at Emma, a mother's fierce love that transcended physical weakness. Where are we going? Rebecca asked as Michael guided her toward the door. First to Boston Memorial Hospital. I've arranged for Dr. James Anderson to meet us there. He's the best oncologist in New England. After that, you'll both stay at my penthouse where I can ensure your safety. Rebecca paused, her expression conflicted. Michael, Jessica has access to your home. It's not safe. Not anymore, Michael said firmly. After reading your letter, certain things became clear. Jessica's role in my company and my life is over. As they made their slow way down the stairs, Emma carrying her mother's pillow proudly, Michael's phone vibrated again. Jessica's name flashed on the screen for the fifth time. Again, he declined the call. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, leaving the streets glistening in the late afternoon sun. Frank had brought the car around to the building entrance, minimizing the distance Rebecca would need to walk. As Michael helped Rebecca into the vehicle, movement across the street caught his attention, a flash of red hair disappearing behind a parked silver sedan. Frank, Michael murmured, silver card at 2 o'clock. Possible surveillance. Frank nodded imperceptibly, scanning the area while maintaining his helpful demeanor. I see it, sir. I'll take evasive measures once we're mobile. With Rebecca and Emma safely in the back seat, Michael circled to the other side, maintaining a casual pace, while keeping the silver car in his peripheral vision. As he slid into the seat beside Emma, he noticed the child watching the same car with obvious fear. It's her, Emma whispered, the red-haired lady. Michael squeezed her small hand reassuringly. Don't worry, Frank knows how to lose a tail. As their Bentley pulled away, Michael caught a glimpse of the woman in the silver car, slender, professional-looking with vibrant red hair. Not someone who appeared threatening at first glance, which made her all the more dangerous. She wasn't Jessica. Michael knew every detail of his girlfriend's appearance, but possibly someone working for her. Frank executed a series of turns and lane changes, eventually confirming they weren't being followed. The tension in the car eased slightly as they made their way to Boston Memorial Hospital. During the drive, Michael observed Rebecca and Emma together, the gentle way Rebecca stroked her daughter's hair, the protective manner in which Emma adjusted her mother's oxygen tubing. Their bond was palpable, a fortress built of love and shared hardship. Mr. Reynolds, Emma said, suddenly breaking the silence, are you really my dad? The directness of the question momentarily stunned Michael. He glanced at Rebecca, who gave a small nod of permission. I believe I am, he answered carefully, but we're going to make absolutely sure with a special test at the hospital. Mom says I have your eyes. Emma continued, studying his face with unnerving intensity. And your stubborn chin. Despite the gravity of the situation, Michael felt an unexpected smile tugging at his lips. Your mother might be right about that. If you're my dad, Emma pressed on, her small face serious, does that mean you'll take care of Mom? Make her better? Michael met Rebecca's gaze over Emma's head, reading the silent plea there not to make promises that couldn't be kept. I promise I'll make sure your mom gets the very best care possible, he said carefully. The doctor we're going to see is one of the best in the world. Emma seemed to consider this answer, then nodded, apparently satisfied. Mom says you build the tallest buildings in Boston. She says you are very important. I thought I was, Michael replied, surprising himself with his candor, but I'm beginning to think I might have been wrong about what's truly important. The remainder of the drive passed in silence, each adult lost in thought, while Emma dozed against her mother's shoulder, exhausted from her day's adventure. Boston Memorial Hospital's private entrance allowed them to bypass the main lobby. Dr. James Anderson was waiting as promised, a distinguished man in his 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Michael, he greeted, then turned his attention immediately to Rebecca, his professional gaze assessing her condition. Mrs. Davis, I'm Dr. Anderson. Let's get you settled and see what we're dealing with. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Rebecca was whisked away for scans and blood work, while a nurse gently cleaned and properly bandaged Emma's forehead. Michael arranged for DNA samples to be collected from himself, and Emma requesting the fastest possible processing. As evening fell, Rebecca was settled into a private suite, a space that resembled a luxury hotel room, more than a hospital, with comfortable seating for visitors and a separate bedroom area. Emma, finally feeling safe, had fallen asleep on a pull-out sofa, clutching her mother's special pillow. Michael stood by the window, watching the city lights emerge as darkness descended. Boston spread before him, his city filled with buildings bearing the Reynolds name, monuments to success that suddenly seemed hollow. She has your profile when you sleep, Rebecca said softly from her bed, the way her eyelashes fan against her cheeks. I used to watch you sleep sometimes. Michael turned, studying the woman he'd once loved, then hated, and now he wasn't sure what he felt. Why didn't you fight harder to tell me the truth, Rebecca? Why run away? Rebecca's eyes drifted to Emma's sleeping form. When someone threatens your child, rational thought disappears. All that matters is keeping them safe. She shifted, wincing slightly. I did try, Michael. I came to your office 3 times. Your security turned me away. I sent letters, called, but Jessica had already poisoned the well. I should have listened. Michael admitted, the words difficult but necessary. We both made mistakes, Rebecca conceded. Pride, hurt, fear. They're powerful motivators. Dr. Anderson knocked softly before entering the room, his expression grave but composed. He carried a tablet containing Rebecca's test results. I've reviewed your records from your previous oncologist, along with today's scans. He told Rebecca, his tone gentle but direct. The cancer has progressed significantly. It's in your ovaries, liver, and there are concerning spots on your lungs. Rebecca nodded, as if this merely confirmed what she already knew. How long? Without aggressive treatment, weeks, perhaps a month. Anderson glanced at Michael. With the treatment protocol, I'm recommending a combination of targeted chemotherapy drugs, not currently covered by standard insurance. We might extend that significantly. There have been promising results in cases similar to yours. Cost is not an issue, Michael stated flatly. Rebecca started to protest, but Michael silenced her with a look. I've scheduled you to begin treatment tomorrow morning, Anderson continued. In the meantime, we've adjusted your pain management regimen and oxygen support. He turned to Michael. Could we speak outside for a moment? In the hallway, Anderson's professional facade softened slightly. Michael, I want to be clear about expectations. The treatment I'm proposing is cutting edge and has shown remarkable results in some patients. But Rebecca's cancer is advanced. We're fighting an uphill battle. But there's hope, Michael pressed. There's always hope, Anderson replied. But I would suggest, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I would suggest you make the most of whatever time is available, especially for the child's sake. Michael nodded, the reality of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. Thank you, James, for everything. Anderson squeezed his arm supportively before departing, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts in the quiet hospital corridor. When Michael returned to the room, he found Rebecca watching Emma sleep, tears streaming silently down her face. She deserved better than this, Rebecca whispered. A stable home, 2 parents, not hospitals and fear and uncertainty. Michael crossed to her bedside, taking her fragile hand in his. Rebecca, regardless of what happened between us, I need you to know something. If Emma is my daughter, and I believe she is, then I will protect her with my life. She will want for nothing. Ever. Rebecca's tears flowed faster. She doesn't need things, Michael. She needs love, presence, the things your money can't buy. The barb hit home, reminding Michael of his own emotionally distant father, whose wealth had never compensated for his absence. Before he could respond, his phone vibrated. Jessica again. This time a text message. Michael, we need to talk, now. Things aren't what they seem. Call me. Rebecca noticed his expression darkening. Jessica, he nodded, showing her the message. She knows, Rebecca said with certainty. Her associate must have reported seeing us together. Michael, she's dangerous, more than you realize. I need proof, Rebecca. Real, undeniable proof of what she did. The safety deposit box, Rebecca reminded him. Emma has the key in her backpack. There are documents, recordings, enough to expose Jessica completely. Michael glanced at Emma's backpack sitting on a chair near the sofa where she slept. I'll check the bank first thing tomorrow. Be careful, Rebecca warned. Jessica has too much to lose. She won't give up easily. Michael's phone buzzed again, another text from Jessica. I'm in the hospital parking garage. Either you come down or I come up. Your choice. Michael showed Rebecca the message, watching her face pale further. She can't find us, Rebecca whispered frantically. Michael, she can't know we're here. Michael's jaw tightened. She won't get near you or Emma. I'll handle this. He pressed the call button, and when a nurse appeared, Michael gave explicit security instructions, no visitors without his direct approval. Not even hospital staff Rebecca didn't recognize. After ensuring a security guard was posted outside the door, Michael prepared to confront Jessica. He leaned over the sleeping Emma, gently brushing a strand of blonde hair from her face. The protective instinct that surged through him was both foreign and familiar. He'd felt it once before with his son. "I'll be back soon," he promised Rebecca. "Rest. You're safe here." As Michael rode the elevator down to the parking garage, he steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. The Jessica Hayes he thought he knew, ambitious but ethical, driven but caring, had never existed. 7 years of his life built on lies. 7 years of a child growing up without her father. The elevator doors opened to the dimly lit parking garage. Michael stepped out, cautiously scanning the nearly empty level. Jessica's voice came from behind a concrete pillar. "Hello, Michael." She emerged into the weak fluorescent light, immaculately dressed as always, not a hair out of place. Only the tightness around her eyes betrayed any tension. "Rather dramatic meeting in a parking garage," she observed with forced lightness. "Very cloak and dagger." "What do you want, Jessica?" Michael asked coldly. She tilted her head, studying him. "I want to understand why you've been avoiding my calls, why you suddenly canceled all appointments, why my source tells me you're here at Boston Memorial with Rebecca Davis and a child who bears a striking resemblance to you." Her tone remained conversational, but her eyes had hardened. "Care to explain?" "No," Michael stated flatly. "I don't owe you explanations." Jessica's practiced smile faltered. "Michael, be reasonable. If Rebecca has fed you some story about the past, did you fabricate evidence that Rebecca was unfaithful?" Michael interrupted, watching her carefully. Jessica's expression flickered surprise, calculation, then composure. "Of course not. Why would I do that? To separate us, to have me for yourself." Michael took a step closer. "To ensure I never knew about my daughter." "Daughter?" Jessica laughed, the sound brittle. "Michael, surely you don't believe that child is yours. Rebecca was always manipulative. This is clearly a desperate play for your money now that she's dying." "How do you know she's dying?" Michael asked quietly. "I never mentioned her health status." Jessica froze momentarily, then recovered. "It's obvious from her appearance. Anyone can see she's ill." "You've been watching her, having her followed, threatened." "These accusations are absurd." Jessica snapped, her facade cracking. "I've built a life with you, Michael. 7 years. I've helped build your company, shared your bed, been by your side through everything." "All based on a lie," Michael said. "Tomorrow I'm accessing the evidence Rebecca preserved. Witness statements, recordings, documentation of your schemes." Real fear flashed across Jessica's face, quickly masked by anger. "Evidence can be falsified, Michael. You of all people should understand that." "DNA doesn't lie," Michael countered. "The test results will be ready tomorrow." Jessica stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Think carefully about what you're doing, Michael. If you pursue this vendetta, there will be consequences. For your company, for your reputation." Her eyes gleamed coldly. "For the child." The threat so casually delivered ignited something primal in Michael. He moved forward until he towered over Jessica, his voice deadly quiet. "If you threaten Emma again, if you come anywhere near her or Rebecca, I will destroy you. Completely. Irrevocably." Jessica's eyes widened at the transformation in the man she thought she knew so well. For 7 years, Michael Reynolds had been controlled, calculated, emotionally contained. The man before her now radiated a dangerous, protective fury she'd never witnessed. She took a step back, composing herself. "You're making a mistake, Michael. One you'll regret deeply." "My only regret is the 7 years I wasted believing your lies," Michael replied. "We're done, Jessica, professionally and personally. Clear your office by noon tomorrow." Jessica's laugh held no humor. "You can't remove me from Reynolds Enterprises that easily. I'm CFO. I have contracts, protections." "You have nothing," Michael interrupted. "The morality clause in your contract is quite comprehensive. Corporate espionage, falsification of records, harassment. Take your pick." Jessica's confident facade crumbled, entirely replaced by naked rage. "You'll regret this, Michael. I promise you that." She turned on her heel, stalking toward her car, but paused to deliver a final warning. "That child is not yours. Rebecca is lying. When the DNA test proves it, remember this conversation." As Jessica's car screeched out of the parking garage, Michael remained motionless, processing the encounter. Jessica's reaction had confirmed his worst suspicions, but her parting words planted a seed of doubt. What if the test proved negative? What if Rebecca was manipulating him after all? Michael returned to the hospital room, finding Rebecca asleep and Emma still curled on the sofa. He settled into a chair between them, assuming a guardian position. Regardless of tomorrow's test results, these two vulnerable beings were now under his protection. That much at least was certain, as moonlight filtered through the hospital windows, casting silver patterns across the sleeping faces of mother and daughter. Michael Reynolds made a silent vow. If Emma was his daughter, he would become the father she deserved. And if Rebecca had been telling the truth all along, he would spend whatever time she had left trying to make amends for 7 years of undeserved hatred. The night stretched before him, filled with questions without answers, and a sense that his carefully constructed life was about to change irrevocably. For better or worse, Michael Reynolds, builder of skyscrapers, master of boardrooms, emotionally guarded widower, had found something he hadn't realized he was missing: a reason to care again. To protect. To fight. For the first time in a decade, Michael Reynolds had found something worth more than success. He had found family. The morning sun streamed through the hospital window, casting long shadows across the private suite where Rebecca Davis slept fitfully. Michael Reynolds stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the light, watching Boston come alive far below. He hadn't slept more than an hour, his mind churning with questions, revelations, and plans. Emma stirred on the sofa bed, her small form emerging from beneath the blanket a nurse had thoughtfully provided. She blinked sleepily, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar surroundings, before her eyes found Michael. "You stayed," she said softly, surprise evident in her voice. Michael nodded. "I promised I would." Emma slipped from the sofa, padding across the room in sock-covered feet. She stood beside Michael at the window, her blonde head barely reaching his elbow. "Is Mom going to get her special medicine today?" she asked. "Yes," Michael confirmed. "Dr. Anderson will start her treatment this morning." Emma nodded solemnly, as if processing complex medical information. "The other doctors said medicine couldn't fix her. They said we should prepare." Michael felt a tightness in his chest at the matter-of-fact way this 6-year-old discussed her mother's mortality. "Dr. Anderson is trying something different, something special. Because you're important," Emma concluded. "Important people get special thing." The statement, delivered without resentment or envy, struck Michael deeply. He knelt to meet her eye level. "Everyone deserves the best care, Emma. Your mother should have had it all along." Emma studied his face with those eerily familiar blue eyes. "Are you mad at Mom for not telling you about me before?" The directness of children never ceased to amaze him. "No," he answered honestly. "I'm not mad at your mother. I'm mad at myself and at others for keeping us apart." Emma accepted this with a nod, seemingly satisfied. "I'm hungry." Michael smiled despite himself. "Let's see about breakfast." As if on cue, an orderly arrived with a breakfast tray for Rebecca, and to Michael's surprise, a smaller one for Emma, complete with pancakes arranged to form a smiley face. "Sarah called ahead with the young lady's preferences," the orderly explained with a wink at Emma, who beamed in response. Michael made a mental note to give his assistant a substantial raise. Rebecca woke as the food was being arranged, looking momentarily startled before relaxing at the sight of Michael and Emma. She appeared even frailer in the morning light, but her eyes were clearer than they had been the previous evening. "You're still here," she echoed her daughter's earlier observation. "I told you I would be," Michael replied, helping adjust her bed to a sitting position. While Emma happily consumed her pancakes, a nurse arrived to check Rebecca's vitals and administer her morning medications. Michael took the opportunity to step into the hallway and make several calls, first to his head of security to ensure the hospital perimeter remained monitored, then to his lawyer to begin proceedings against Jessica, and finally to Sarah to arrange for the day's necessities. When he returned, Dr. Anderson was explaining the treatment plan to Rebecca using simple terms that Emma could understand as well. "We'll start with targeted therapy today, followed by the first round of the experimental treatment tomorrow. Once we've established your baseline," Anderson was saying, "you'll feel tired, possibly nauseated, but we have excellent medications to manage the side effects." Rebecca nodded, clutching Emma's hand tightly. "And the success rate?" Anderson glanced briefly at Michael before answering. In cases similar to yours, we've seen remarkable improvement in about 30% of patients. Another 40% experience temporary remission or significant slowing of disease progression. The unspoken remainder, the 30% for whom the treatment failed entirely, hung in the air. When can we start? Rebecca asked, her voice steadier than Michael expected. The pharmacy is preparing your first infusion now, Anderson replied. We should be ready within the hour. After Anderson departed, Rebecca turned to Michael. You don't need to stay for this. It's going to be unpleasant and will take hours. I'm staying, Michael said firmly, then softened his tone. Unless you'd prefer I didn't. Rebecca shook her head. No, I'd like you to stay, but Emma shouldn't have to watch. She's seen enough of hospitals already. Sarah is bringing some clothes and essentials for both of you, Michael explained. Once she arrives, I thought Emma might like to see my apartment. Get settled in. It's only 15 minutes away if you need us. Relief washed over Rebecca's face. Thank you. She shouldn't have to see the worst of it. Emma looked up from her pancakes, clearly following the adult conversation. I want to stay with Mom. Sweetheart, Rebecca said gently, remember what we talked about? Some medicines make me very tired and sick for a little while. I need to rest so the medicine can work. Emma's lower lip quivered stubbornly. But what if you need me? Mr. Reynolds will bring you back this evening, Rebecca promised, and you can call me anytime. Actually, Michael interjected, pulling something from his pocket. I brought you this. He handed Emma a brand new smartphone in a pink protective case. It's already set up with your mom's number and mine. You can call or text whenever you want. Emma's eyes widened as she accepted the phone reverently. My own phone, really, Michael confirmed. There are also some games and books on there, and a special app that lets you see when your mom's treatment will be finished each day. While Emma explored her new device, Michael noticed Rebecca watching him with an unreadable expression. Thank you, she said quietly, not just for the phone, for believing me, for helping us. I haven't fully processed everything yet, Michael admitted, but the DNA results should be ready this afternoon, and I'm going to the bank to retrieve whatever evidence you gathered. Rebecca nodded, her expression darkening. Be careful, Michael. Jessica won't give up easily. I've dealt with corporate raiders, hostile takeovers, and cutthroat competitors for decades, Michael reminded her. I can handle Jessica Hayes. You've never dealt with someone who has nothing to lose, Rebecca cautioned. Jessica's entire future depends on maintaining her lie. That makes her dangerous in ways you can't imagine. Before Michael could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Sarah Wilson entered, carrying several shopping bags, her kind face brightening at the sight of Emma. Good morning, everyone, she greeted. I've brought the items you requested, Mr. Reynolds. Sarah, thank you, Michael said gratefully. You remember Emma from yesterday. Of course I do, Sarah smiled, setting down her bags. I brought you some clothes and a few other things you might need. She pulled out a soft blue dress, jeans, sweaters, and other essentials in Emma's size. How did you know my size? Emma asked, amazed. I'm very good at guessing, Sarah winked. She turned to Rebecca. Mrs. Davis, I included some comfortable bus items for you as well. Soft fabrics, easy to manage with Ives. Rebecca looked momentarily overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness. Thank you. Sarah discreetly handed Michael a small bag. The other items you requested, sir. Michael nodded, knowing it contained the DNA testing kits from the second lab, a precaution he'd requested after Jessica's parting words had planted seeds of doubt. As Emma explored her new clothes with delight, nurses arrived to begin Rebecca's treatment. An IV pole with bags of clearer fluid was wheeled in, followed by a technician with monitoring equipment. This is our cue to give your mom some space, Michael told Emma gently. We'll come back this evening, I promise. Emma's excitement faded as she looked at her mother, now being connected to various tubes and monitors. But what if... Remember your new phone, Rebecca reminded her. You can call any time, and I need you to be brave and strong like you always are. Emma squared her small shoulders, nodding with a maturity that broke Michael's heart. She carefully hugged her mother, mindful of the tubes, and whispered something in her ear that made Rebecca smile through sudden tears. Take care of her, Rebecca said to Michael as Emma reluctantly stepped away. With my life, Michael promised the vow, feeling both foreign and right on his lips. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Anderson pulled Michael aside in the hallway. The bank called regarding the safety deposit box. They need both keys, the one Emma has and the one registered to the account holder. Rebecca should have both keys, Michael frowned. Apparently not. The second key is registered to a Thomas Caldwell, the name from Rebecca's letter the man Jessica had allegedly paid to pose in those damning photographs 7 years ago. Can they make an exception? This is urgent. Anderson shook his head. Banking regulations are strict. However, they suggested that if Mr. Caldwell authorized access in person with proper identification, you could proceed with just Emma's key. Michael nodded thoughtfully. Thank you for relaying the message. He would need to locate Caldwell, another complication in an already complex situation. With Sarah leading the way, Michael and Emma departed the hospital through a private exit where Frank waited with the car. Michael noted with approval the additional security personnel strategically positioned around the perimeter, a precaution he'd authorized overnight. Emma clutched her new phone in one hand and Michael's hand in the other as they walked to the car. The simple gesture of trust continued to affect Michael profoundly. This child, his child, had accepted him without reservation despite his initial coldness. Where are we going first? Emma asked as Frank pulled away from the hospital. To my apartment, Michael answered. It's in a building not far from my office. You can see the whole city from there. Emma nodded, then hesitated. But what about the evidence Mom talked about in the bank box? Michael glanced at her, impressed by her awareness. We need to find someone named Thomas Caldwell first. He has the other key we need. Oh, Uncle Tommy, Emma brightened. He visits sometimes. Mom says he's an old friend. Michael tensed. Uncle Tommy visits you and your mother. Not a lot, Emma clarified. Sometimes on my birthday, he brings presents and looks sad. Mom says he has regrets. Michael exchanged glances with Sarah in the front seat. This complicated things further. If Caldwell maintained contact with Rebecca and Emma, his role might be more significant than a simple paid accomplice. Do you know how to contact Uncle Tommy? Michael asked carefully. Emma nodded. Mom has his number in her special book for emergencies. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a worn address book. She told me to bring this too. Michael accepted the book with mixed emotions. Rebecca had prepared meticulously for this possibility evidence, contacts contingency plans. While he admired her foresight, it pained him to think of her planning for her potential death while raising their daughter alone. At his penthouse, Emma stood wide-eyed in the expansive living room, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furnishings and spectacular city view. You live here all by yourself? She asked incredulously. I do, Michael confirmed, suddenly seeing his home through a child's eyes, beautiful but sterile, impressive but unwelcoming. It's pretty, Emma offered diplomatically, but it doesn't look very comfortable. Sarah smothered a smile, catching Michael's eye. Perhaps Miss Emma could help make it more comfortable while you make your calls. Grateful for Sarah's intervention, Michael retreated to his home office while Sarah helped Emma settle in. Through the glass wall, he watched as his assistant unpacked items from the shopping bags, including what appeared to be art supplies, books, and a plush toy that Emma immediately hugged to her chest. Michael located Thomas Caldwell's number in Rebecca's address book and dialed. After 4 rings, a cautious male voice answered. Hello, Thomas Caldwell. This is Michael Reynolds. There was a sharp intake of breath, then silence. Mr. Caldwell, I'm calling regarding Rebecca Davis and Emma. Rebecca is undergoing cancer treatment, and we need to access a safety deposit box that requires your key. More silence, then finally. How did you find Rebecca? How much do you know? I know enough, Michael said tersely. Emma brought me a letter yesterday. Rebecca explained everything. Caldwell sighed heavily. I've been waiting for this call for years. Dreading it, actually. Why? Michael demanded. Because I'm ashamed, Caldwell admitted. What I did, what Jessica paid me to do, it destroyed lives. I've tried to make amends, checking on them when I could, but nothing can undo the damage. You can start by meeting me at First National Bank with your key, Michael stated flatly. Today. Jessica will know, Caldwell warned Jean. She has people watching me. Let her know, Michael replied coldly. It's time this all came to light. After arranging to meet Caldwell in 2 hours, Michael called his legal team to brief them on the situation and request a restraining order against Jessica. His final call was to the head of Reynolds Enterprises Board of Directors, explaining that Jessica Hayes was being removed from her position pending an investigation into serious allegations. When he emerged from his office, Michael found Sarah and Emma sitting on the floor surrounded by art supplies. Emma was carefully coloring what appeared to be a family portrait, three figures standing beside what looked like a house. "That's lovely, Emma," Michael commented, kneeling beside her. "Who are the people?" "This is Mom." Emma pointed to the tallest female figure. "This is me," the smallest figure in the middle. "And this is you," the tallest figure wearing what appeared to be a suit. "And what's this building?" Michael asked, indicating the structure beside them. Emma looked up at him, her expression serious. "It's our house, for when Mom gets better." She hesitated, then added softly, "Mrs. Wilson says it's okay to hope for things even when grown-ups look worried." Michael shot a grateful glance at Sarah, who discreetly wiped a tear from her eye. "It's absolutely okay to hope," Michael assured Emma, "and it's a beautiful house." Emma beamed, then returned to her coloring. Michael gestured for Sarah to join him in the kitchen. "I need to meet someone at the bank in 2 hours," he explained quietly. "Someone connected to Rebecca's evidence against Jessica." Sarah nodded. "I can stay with Emma. We're getting along wonderfully." "Thank you," Michael said sincerely. "Also, the DNA results from the hospital should be ready soon. If they call, I'll let you know immediately," Sarah promised. She hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, sir, anyone with eyes can see Emma is your daughter. She has your expressions, your mannerisms. The way she tilts her head when she's thinking, it's exactly like you." Michael smiled faintly. "I've noticed that too. But Jessica has planted doubts, and I need certainty before proceeding legally." Sarah nodded, understanding. "One more thing, sir. Security called while you were on the phone. Ms. Hayes attempted to enter your office this morning but was denied access. She became quite vocal." "I expected as much," Michael sighed. "Double the security here and at the hospital, and Sarah, thank you for everything." 2 hours later, Michael entered First National Bank, nodding to the security personnel he'd stationed discreetly around the perimeter. Frank remained in the car, vigilant for any sign of Jessica or her associates. Thomas Caldwell was already waiting in the lobby, a thin, nervous-looking man in his early 40s, with receding brown hair and anxious eyes. He stood when Michael approached, offering a hand that trembled slightly. "Mr. Reynolds," he greeted, "I wasn't sure you'd come alone." "I'm not known for breaking appointments," said Mr. Caldwell, Michael replied coolly, shaking the offered hand briefly. "You have the key," Caldwell nodded, patting his jacket pocket. "Listen, before we do this, I need to explain." "Save it for after we've seen what's in the box," Michael interrupted. "Rebecca and Emma's safety depends on this evidence." The mention of Emma's name visibly affected Caldwell. "How is she, Emma, I mean? She's gotten so big since I last saw her." Michael studied Caldwell with narrowed eyes. "You seem genuinely concerned about my daughter." "I am," Caldwell admitted. "She's an amazing kid. Smart, brave. She deserves better than what life has dealt her." He swallowed hard. "Rebecca told her I'm just an old friend, but I've tried to be there when I could. Birthday presents, Christmas gifts. It was the least I could do after what I helped take from her." Michael felt a conflicting surge of gratitude and jealousy. Gratitude that someone had provided a male presence in Emma's life, jealousy that it hadn't been him. They were escorted to the bank vault where the manager personally assisted them with accessing Box 713. Both keys turned smoothly, revealing a large safety deposit box that Caldwell allowed Michael to remove. In a private viewing room, Michael opened the box. Inside were several carefully organized files, a flash drive sealed in an envelope, and a small digital recorder. "Rebecca documented everything," Caldwell explained as Michael examined the contents. "She was methodical, dates, times, recordings when possible." The first file contained photographs, the original prints Jessica had presented to Michael 7 years ago, purporting to show Rebecca's infidelity. Beside them were enhanced images, with notes from a forensic photography expert highlighting inconsistencies and signs of manipulation. "These were doctored," Michael murmured, anger building as he studied the evidence. "Professionally done," Caldwell nodded. "Jessica paid a specialist in Los Angeles. The originals were innocent Rebecca and I having coffee talking. The specialist edited them to make it appear intimate." The second file contained bank statements showing large transfers from Jessica to Caldwell, along with a written and notarized statement from Caldwell confessing his role in the deception. "She approached me at a vulnerable time," Caldwell explained as Michael read. "I'd lost my job, was facing bankruptcy. Jessica offered $50,000 to pose for some photos with Rebecca, then testify that we were having an affair if needed. And you agreed, Michael stated flatly. Caldwell looked away, shame evident on his face. Yes, it seemed harmless at the time, just photos, no actual lies to your face. But then Rebecca discovered she was pregnant and everything changed. Jessica became frightening. The third file contained medical records, confirmation of Rebecca's pregnancy, dated 6 weeks before their breakup, and evidence of threats made against her and the unborn child. Jessica hired men to intimidate her. Caldwell continued, his voice hollow. One night, they cornered Rebecca outside her apartment. One of them held a knife to her stomach and told her what would happen to her bastard child if she ever contacted you again. Michael's hands tightened on the documents, rage building at the thought of Rebecca facing such terror alone. When I found out what Jessica had done, I tried to help Rebecca, Caldwell added. I offered to marry her to give the baby a name protection. It was a marriage of convenience only. It was never romantic. Why didn't you come to me with the truth? Michael demanded. Jessica made it clear what would happen if either of us approached you, Caldwell replied, and by then you had already moved on with her. You wouldn't even take Rebecca's calls. The final file contained the most damning evidence emails between Jessica and various accomplices obtained by a private investigator Rebecca had hired years later, when she felt safer documenting the entire conspiracy. Rebecca never stopped trying to find a way to tell you the truth, Caldwell said quietly. But your relationship with Jessica was public powerful, and Emma became Rebecca's priority, keeping her safe, giving her stability. Michael inserted the flash drive into his laptop. It contained video statements from the photography specialist who had doctored the photos, the private investigator's complete findings, and most disturbing surveillance footage of Jessica meeting with the men who had threatened Rebecca. The digital recorder held audio evidence, a conversation between Jessica and Caldwell, where she explicitly outlined her plan to separate Michael from Rebecca permanently and threatened consequences if he ever revealed the truth. Why did Rebecca preserve all this if she never intended to use it? Michael asked, struggling to control his emotions. Insurance, Caldwell explained. Protection for Emma. She knew Jessica would do anything to maintain her position in your life and company. The evidence was Rebecca's only leverage if Jessica ever discovered Emma's existence. Michael sat back, overwhelmed by the scope of Jessica's deception and Rebecca's foresight. And your role now? Why maintain contact with them? Caldwell sighed heavily. Guilt initially, then genuine concern. Emma is an incredible child, and Rebecca, despite everything, never showed me the contempt I deserved. He met Michael's gaze directly. I've tried to help where I could. Financial support when Rebecca would accept it, which wasn't often. Being Uncle Tommy for Emma on special occasions. Michael processed this information, his anger at Caldwell tempered by the man's obvious remorse and efforts to atone. The bank said you're still listed as having access rights to this box. Why would Rebecca trust you with that? Because I'm her backup plan, Caldwell admitted. If something happened to her before she could reach you, I promised to get Emma to you safely along with this evidence. Rebecca made me swear to protect Emma even if it meant facing your anger or legal consequences for my actions. Michael stood, gathering the evidence into his briefcase. You'll need to make a formal statement to my lawyers. Today. Everything you've told me, everything you did. Caldwell nodded. I expected that. I'm ready to face whatever consequences come. As they prepared to leave, Michael's phone rang, Sarah's number flashing on the screen. Yes, Sarah. Sir, Sarah's voice was tense. The hospital called. There's been an incident. Someone attempted to access Rebecca's room, a woman matching the description of Jessica's associate from yesterday. Security intervened, but... Is Rebecca all right? Michael demanded, already moving toward the exit, Caldwell following close behind. She's safe, but very distressed. Dr. Anderson is concerned about the effect on her treatment, and Sir Emma overheard the call. She's frightened. Put her on, Washayan, Michael instructed. A moment later, Emma's small voice came through the phone. Dad, is Mom okay? The bad lady tried to hurt her again. The word dad stopped Michael in his tracks. It was the first time Emma had called him that, and it hit him with unexpected force. Your mom is safe, he assured her, his voice gentle. I'm going to the hospital right now to make sure everything's okay. Sarah will stay with you. I want to come too, Emma insisted, her voice wavering. Mom needs me when she's scared. Michael hesitated. His instinct was to protect Emma from the situation, but he recognized the determination in her voice, the same determination he'd shown throughout his career. All right, he conceded. Sarah will bring you, but you need to stay with her at all times. Promise me. I promise, Emma agreed solemnly. As Michael ended the call, he found Caldwell watching him with a strange expression. She called you Dad, Caldwell observed. Yes, Michael acknowledged, unsure why this seemed significant to Caldwell. Rebecca would be happy, Caldwell said softly. That's all she ever wanted for Emma to know her father. At the hospital, increased security was immediately evident. Two guards stood outside Rebecca's room checking IDs carefully before allowing entry. Inside, Rebecca sat upright in bed, pale but composed, while Dr. Anderson adjusted her IV. Michael, she breathed when he entered. Thank God. What happened? Michael demanded, moving to her bedside. A woman with red hair, the same one who was at our apartment, tried to get in, Rebecca explained. She was dressed as a hospital volunteer. When security questioned her, she ran. Dr. Anderson frowned. This kind of stress is extremely detrimental during treatment. Ms. Davis needs calm and stability. I understand, Michael assured him. I'm implementing additional security measures immediately. He turned to Rebecca. Sarah is bringing Emma. She was worried about you. Relief washed over Rebecca's face. Thank you. She worries so much. It helps her to see me, to know I'm okay. Michael nodded, then showed Rebecca the briefcase. I accessed the safety deposit box. Caldwell cooperated fully. Thomas came through, Rebecca said, a hint of surprise in her voice. How much did you review? All of it, Michael replied grimly. I had no idea how extensive Jessica's deception was. The threats against you, the manipulated evidence, all of it. He took Rebecca's hand, carefully mindful of the IV. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I should have listened to you 7 years ago. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. We both made mistakes, Michael. Pride, fear. But what matters now is Emma. As if summoned by her name, the door opened to admit Emma, who rushed to her mother's bedside with Sarah following close behind. Mom, are you okay? Did the red lady hurt you? Emma examined her mother anxiously. I'm fine, sweetheart, Rebecca assured her. The security guards protected me just like Mr. Reynolds promised they would. Emma nodded, relief evident on her small face. She climbed carefully onto the bed beside Rebecca, mindful of the tubes and wires. I was making a picture of our new house, she informed her mother. For when you get better. It has a big yard for a dog. Rebecca smiled, though Michael noticed the effort it cost her. The treatment was clearly taking a toll already. That sounds wonderful, Emma. Michael's phone vibrated with an incoming text. The hospital lab informing him that the DNA results were complete. He excused himself to retrieve them, leaving Emma chatting with Rebecca while Sarah stood guard. At the laboratory, the technician handed Michael a sealed envelope. The results are conclusive, Mr. Reynolds. 99.9% certainty. Michael thanked him, then stepped into an empty consultation room before opening the envelope with steady hands. The results confirmed what his heart already knew: Emma was unquestionably his biological daughter. Relief washed over him, followed by renewed anger at Jessica for stealing 7 years of his daughter's life. He called his lawyer, immediately forwarding the DNA results and instructing them to proceed with all legal measures against Jessica Hayes. When Michael returned to Rebecca's room, he found her dozing with Emma curled protectively beside her. Sarah sat nearby, working quietly on a tablet. The results, Sarah whispered when she noticed Michael. He nodded, showing her the papers. Sarah smiled, unsurprised. As I said, sir, anyone with eyes could see it. Michael carefully sat on the edge of Rebecca's bed, causing her to stir and open her eyes. It's positive, he said simply. Rebecca's smile was radiant, despite her exhaustion. I never doubted it. Emma, awakened by their voices, looked between them curiously. What's positive? Michael exchanged glances with Rebecca, who nodded encouragingly. He turned to Emma, choosing his words carefully. The special test we did, it proves that I am definitely your father, Emma. Scientifically, officially proven. Emma processed this information with a thoughtful frown. Didn't you believe Mom before? Sometimes adults need extra proof for important things, Rebecca explained gently, especially when other people try to confuse them with lies. Emma considered this, then nodded with childlike acceptance. So now you know for sure you're my dad. Yes, Michael confirmed, emotion thickening his voice. Now I know for sure. Emma smiled, a dimple appearing in her left cheek, another trait she shared with Michael. I already knew. Mom showed me pictures, and we have the same eyes. She yawned, nestling closer to Rebecca, and the same stubborn chin. Michael chuckled despite the lump in his throat. Your mother mentioned that. Rebecca stroked Emma's hair as the child drifted back toward sleep. She's been waiting her whole life to know you, Michael. Even when I thought it might never happen, she never stopped asking questions about her father. Well, now Michael felt a profound mix of joy and grief, joy at finding his daughter, grief for the years lost. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time, he promised. Rebecca's expression grew serious. Michael, there's something else you should know, something not in the evidence files. What is it? He asked, concern rising at her tone. Jessica, Rebecca began, but was interrupted by the sound of raised voices in the hallway. The door burst open, revealing a security guard attempting to restrain an elegantly dressed woman, Jessica Hayes, her usual composure shattered by rage. So this is the family reunion, Jessica spat, her gaze darting from Michael to Rebecca and the now awake Emma. How touching. Michael stood, positioning himself between Jessica and the bed. You shouldn't be here, Jessica. There's a restraining order being processed as we speak. Jessica laughed, a brittle sound devoid of humor. Restraining orders, DNA tests, evidence. You think these things will stop me? I've spent 7 years building my life with you, Michael. 7 years becoming indispensable to you and Reynolds Enterprises. Those years were built on lies, Michael replied coldly. I've seen the evidence, Jessica, all of it. The doctored photos, the hired thugs, the threats against a pregnant woman and an unborn child. Jessica's gaze shifted to Emma, who shrank against Rebecca. So the brat found you. How sweet. Her smile was venomous. Did your mother tell you who I am, little girl? I'm the woman who's been sharing your father's bed for 7 years. The woman he chose over your pathetic mother. That's enough, Michael warned, his voice deadly quiet. Security. The guard who had tried to restrain Jessica reappeared with the reinforcements, but Jessica held up a hand. I'm leaving, but this isn't over, Michael. Her gaze returned to Rebecca. Enjoy your happy family while you can. Cancer's a terrible disease, so unpredictable. Treatments fail all the time. The threat hung in the air as security escorted Jessica from the room. Emma was crying softly and Rebecca looked ashen. I want to go home, Emma whispered. I don't like it here anymore. Michael exchanged glances with Rebecca, who nodded her agreement. Dr. Anderson mentioned the possibility of outpatient treatment, she said quietly, with proper home care. I'll arrange it immediately, Michael promised, already reaching for his phone. You'll both come to my penthouse where I can ensure your safety. As he stepped outside to make the necessary calls, Michael was approached by the head of his security team. Sir, we've detained Ms. Hayes, but legally we can only hold her until police arrive. Understand? Michael nodded. Double the security detail here and at the penthouse. No one gets access to Rebecca or Emma without explicit approval from me. Yes, sir. And sir, our surveillance team reports unusual activity around your office building. Several individuals matching the description of the men identified in Miss Davis's evidence files have been observed monitoring the entrances. Michael's jaw tightened. Jessica was mobilizing resources against him, perhaps the same men who had threatened Rebecca years ago. Alert all security personnel. Full protective protocols for my family and key staff. The word family felt foreign but right on his tongue. Despite the circumstances, the threats, the medical crisis, the years of separation, Michael Reynolds had found something he'd thought lost forever after his wife and son died. He had found a purpose beyond business success, beyond wealth accumulation. He had found a family worth fighting for, and Michael Reynolds had never lost a fight he was determined to win. The sky darkened over Boston as the evening approached, heavy clouds gathering on the horizon, promising a storm to match the one brewing in Michael Reynolds' life. The penthouse that had once felt cavernous and empty now hummed with activity as medical equipment was installed in the guest bedroom, security protocols were established, and Emma explored her new temporary home. Rebecca sat propped up in the specially delivered hospital bed, an IV stand beside her, watching as Emma arranged her few belongings in the adjoining room. Despite the aggressive treatment she'd undergone that morning, Rebecca's eyes were clear and alert, though the toll on her body was evident in the pallor of her skin and the careful way she moved. She's resilient, Michael observed, standing in the doorway with 2 mugs of tea. Rebecca accepted hers gratefully. She's had to be. A shadow passed over her face. I've tried to shield her from the worst of it, but children sense everything, don't they? Michael nodded, remembering how his son had somehow always known when business troubles were weighing on him, despite his efforts to maintain a cheerful facade at home. They're more perceptive than we give them credit for. From the adjacent room came the sound of Emma humming as she carefully arranged the new books and toys Sarah had acquired for her. The normalcy of the moment struck Michael profoundly, a child settling into a new space, making it her own, unaware of the adult's concerns just a few feet away. Jessica won't stop, Rebecca said quietly, returning to their earlier conversation. What happened at the hospital was just the beginning. I've implemented every security measure possible, Michael assured her. The penthouse has a private elevator with biometric access. Guards are stationed throughout the building. No one gets in without my approval. Rebecca's fingers tightened around her mug. It's not just physical threats I'm worried about. Jessica has been building her position at Reynolds Enterprises for 7 years. She must have contingency plans, connections, leverage you don't know about. My legal team is conducting a full audit of every contract, every account she touched, Michael explained. The board has been informed of the situation with careful omission of personal details and has approved her suspension pending investigation. And they believed you. Just like that, Michael's expression darkened. Let's say certain board members have harbored their own suspicions about Jessica's methods for some time. They simply lacked concrete evidence. A knock at the door interrupted them. Frank Martinez entered, his professional demeanor tinged with urgency. Mr. Reynolds, the security system detected an attempted breach of your private server. The IT team believes someone was trying to access personal and corporate files remotely. Michael stood immediately. Jessica, the attack originated from an IP address associated with a private server registered to an offshore company. We're tracing it now, but it bears all the hallmarks of Jessica's meticulous planning, Michael finished. He turned to Rebecca. I need to speak with my cybersecurity team. Will you be all right for a few minutes? Rebecca nodded. Emma and I will be fine. Go. In his home office, Michael conferred with his head of IT security via video call. The attack had been sophisticated but ultimately unsuccessful. The recent security upgrades implemented after Jessica's suspension had prevented access to sensitive files. They were specifically targeting financial records and personal communications, the security expert explained. Based on the pattern, they were looking for something specific. Or trying to plant something, Michael suggested grimly. Jessica knows enough about our systems to fabricate evidence if she gained access. We've locked down everything, the expert assured him. But sir, this level of attack suggests professional help. Ms. Hayes appears to have significant resources at her disposal. After ending the call, Michael remained at his desk contemplating his next move. Jessica was escalating more quickly than anticipated, moving from threats to active cyber attacks in less than a day. What was driving her urgency? His phone rang Thomas Caldwell's number. Caldwell, Michael answered tersely. Reynolds, I think I'm being followed. Caldwell's voice was tight with fear. After I left your lawyer's office. Black SUV, 2 men, same ones who worked for Jessica before. Michael tensed. Where are you now? Downtown near the public library. I ducked inside, but they're waiting at the entrance. Stay there, Michael instructed. I'm sending security personnel. They'll bring you to my location. Is that wise, leading them straight to you, to Emma? They already know where we are, Michael said grimly, and right now you're a valuable witness we need to protect. After dispatching 2 security officers to retrieve Caldwell, Michael returned to Rebecca's room, finding her reading to Emma from one of the new books. The domestic scene was so natural, so at odds with the danger surrounding them, that Michael paused in the doorway, momentarily transfixed. And then the brave knight faced the dragon. Rebecca was reading, her voice animated despite her weakness. Not with his sword drawn, but with an open hand. Why didn't he use his sword? Emma asked, snuggled against her mother's side. Dragons are dangerous. Because he had learned that understanding can be more powerful than fighting, Rebecca explained. Sometimes what seems frightening is just misunderstood. Emma considered this. Like when Billy Mason pushed me at school, and you said he was sad because his parents were getting divorced. Rebecca smiled, stroking Emma's hair. Exactly like that. Michael cleared his throat gently. I hate to interrupt story time, but we have a situation developing. Thomas Caldwell is being brought here. He believes Jessica's associates are following him. Rebecca paled slightly. Then they'll follow him here. That's what I'm counting on, Michael replied. We have the building secured. If they make a move, we'll catch them. And if Jessica is directly connected to them, we'll have concrete evidence of her violating the restraining order. Using Thomas as bait, Rebecca observed, not entirely approving. Using all of us, Michael corrected. Jessica wants something beyond revenge, something worth risking criminal charges to obtain. The evidence I gathered, Rebecca suggested. Without it, it's her word against ours. Michael shook his head. The evidence is already with my lawyers securely stored. She must know that. Then what? Before Michael could respond, his phone buzzed with a message from the building's security team. Caldwell had arrived with his escort and was being brought up in the service elevator to avoid detection. Emma, sweetheart, Rebecca said, why don't you go organize your new art supplies in your room? Mr. Reynolds and I need to talk with Uncle Tommy when he arrives. Emma looked between the adults, clearly sensing the tension, but nodded obediently. Okay, Mom, but can I show him my drawing later? Of course, Rebecca promised. Once Emma was in her room, Michael locked the door to the hallway and activated the penthouse's enhanced security protocols. Bulletproof glass shields descended over the windows, and cameras throughout the building began a continuous feed to monitors in his office. Thomas Caldwell arrived looking disheveled and frightened, escorted by two of Michael's security personnel. They followed us halfway here before we lost them, Caldwell reported. Professional surveillance team. They knew what they were doing. Did you recognize any of them? Rebecca asked. Caldwell nodded grimly. One of them was the same man who threatened you 7 years ago, the one with the scar on his right hand. Rebecca's hand unconsciously moved to her throat, touching the faint scar there. Martin Krause, Jessica's favorite enforcer. You know his name? Michael asked sharply. I made it my business to know everything about the people threatening my child, Rebecca replied. Krause has a record assault, intimidation, suspected involvement in an unsolved murder in Chicago. Jessica hired him through a security consulting firm that operates in gray legal areas. Michael absorbed this information, his concern deepening. Jessica had connections to truly dangerous people, not just corporate fixers, but genuine criminals. What does Jessica want badly enough to risk exposure like this? Michael wondered aloud. Caldwell and Rebecca exchanged glances. There's something we haven't told you, Caldwell admitted reluctantly. Something not in the evidence files. Michael's gaze sharpened. What? Rebecca took a deep breath. About 2 years into our separation after Emma was born, Jessica approached me with an offer $1 million to take Emma and leave the country permanently. Change our names, never return, never contact you. You obviously refused, Michael said. Rebecca nodded. I wouldn't sell my daughter's birthright or deny her knowledge of her father. But Jessica was desperate enough to make that offer, which made me wonder why. We started digging, Caldwell continued. Rebecca hired a private investigator, a former FBI agent skilled in financial forensics. What did he find? Michael asked, though a sinking feeling in his stomach suggested he already knew the answer. Discrepancies in Reynolds Enterprises' financial records, Rebecca said softly, specifically in projects overseen directly by Jessica. Money disappearing from development funds, reappearing in offshore accounts, then being channeled back into the company through subsidiary investments. Michael's mind raced. Money laundering. On a massive scale, Caldwell confirmed, your company's legitimate real estate developments provided perfect cover. The investigator estimated nearly $50 million had been processed through this system over several years. Jessica wasn't just after me or my company. Michael realized anger building. She was using Reynolds Enterprises as a front for criminal financial operations. Rebecca nodded. The evidence is in a separate safety deposit box. We didn't include it with the personal evidence because we feared it might trigger more dangerous retaliation. The financial crimes involve other parties, powerful, dangerous people who have much to lose if exposed. Where is this evidence now? Michael demanded. Box 897, same bank, Caldwell replied. Different key system. I have one key and Rebecca's investigator has the other. He's been keeping his distance as an additional security measure. Michael processed this information, pieces falling into place. Jessica's increasingly desperate actions, the professional surveillance, the attempted cyber attack. She wasn't just trying to maintain her relationship with Michael or her position at Reynolds Enterprises. She was trying to prevent the exposure of a criminal financial operation that could result in federal charges and prison time. Who else knows about this? Michael asked. Just the three of us and the investigator, Rebecca assured him. His name is Robert Mercer, former FBI financial crimes specialist. The sound of Emma's bedroom door opening interrupted their conversation. She emerged with a drawing in hand, her face brightening at the sight of Caldwell. "Uncle Tommy," she exclaimed, running to him. "Look what I made." Caldwell knelt to receive both the hug and the artwork, his earlier fear temporarily forgotten. "This is beautiful, Emma. Is this your new house?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "For all of us, when Mom gets better." "See, there's Mom and me and Deb, and you can visit too." The innocence of the child's hope contrasted sharply with the gravity of the adult's conversation. Caldwell looked up at Michael, a silent question in his eyes. Michael nodded slightly. Despite everything, he couldn't find it in himself to resent Caldwell's presence in Emma's life. The man had clearly cared for his daughter when Michael couldn't or wouldn't be there. "It's a wonderful house, Emma," Caldwell said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'd love to visit." Rebecca beckoned Emma to her bedside. "Sweetheart, Uncle Tommy and your father need to talk about some grown-up things. Why don't you show me what you have organized in your room?" As Rebecca and Emma disappeared into the adjoining bedroom, Michael turned to Caldwell. "We need to contact Mercer immediately and secure that evidence. If Jessica is desperate enough to send Krause after you, she must know about the financial files." Caldwell looked troubled. "I haven't been able to reach Mercer since yesterday. He was supposed to check in this morning." A cold weight settled in Michael's stomach. "Call him again, now." Caldwell dialed Mercer's number, putting the phone on speaker. It rang several times before going to voicemail. "Something's wrong," Caldwell said, voicing Michael's own fears. "Mercer is obsessively punctual about check-ins. It's an old FBI habit." Michael's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. "We need to assume the worst, that Jessica has somehow compromised Mercer or obtained his key. The financial evidence could be at risk or already destroyed. Without it, the money laundering charges won't stick," Caldwell pointed out. "And those are the charges that would truly destroy Jessica." Michael paced the room, calculating angles and options. "We need to get to that safety deposit box immediately. Tonight." "The bank's closed," Caldwell objected. "I sit on the board of First National," Michael replied grimly. "They'll open for me." The logistics came together quickly. Michael arranged for the bank manager to meet them at 9:00 p.m. for an emergency access situation. Additional security personnel were assigned to remain with Rebecca and Emma at the penthouse. "I don't like leaving them," Michael admitted, as he prepared to depart with Caldwell. "They'll be safer here than with us," Caldwell reasoned. "If Jessica's people are watching the bank, and that's where the danger will be." Michael nodded through the separation anxiety he felt surprised him with its intensity. He had known Emma for barely 48 hours, yet the thought of leaving her vulnerable triggered a primal protective instinct he hadn't felt since his son's death. He went to say goodbye, finding Emma helping Rebecca with her evening medications. "I'll be back in a couple of hours," he explained, keeping his tone casual despite his concern. "Frank and the security team will be right outside if you need anything." Emma studied him with those disconcertingly perceptive blue eyes. "You're going to catch the bad people, aren't you?" Michael hesitated, then knelt to her level. "I'm going to try to find some important papers that will help keep us all safe." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like a mission." "Exactly like that." "Be careful," she said suddenly, throwing her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. "Promise you'll come back." The simple question pierced Michael's heart. How many times had this child watched her mother leave for treatments, wondering if she would return? How many promises had life already broken for her? "I promise," he said firmly, returning the hug. "Nothing could keep me away." Rebecca caught his eye over Emma's shoulder, her expression a complex mixture of gratitude, fear, and something deeper that made Michael's chest tighten. "We'll be waiting," she said softly. The city streets glistened with recent rain as Michael's armored SUV, driven by Frank, made its way toward First National Bank. Caldwell sat tensely in the back seat beside Michael, repeatedly checking his phone for any response from Mercer. Still nothing, Michael asked, though he already knew the answer from Caldwell's expression. Caldwell shook his head. This isn't like him at all. I'm afraid Jessica may have... He couldn't finish the sentence. Michael's jaw tightened. The stakes kept rising. What had begun as a personal betrayal was expanding into something far darker. Financial crimes, professional intimidation, and now possibly worse. If Jessica has harmed Mercer, Michael said quietly, I'll ensure she faces every legal consequence possible. Caldwell looked at him sideways. Just legal consequences. I'm not a vigilante, Caldwell. I'm a businessman who believes in the rule of law. Even when the law fails, Michael didn't answer immediately. The truth was, he had already imagined various scenarios of personal retribution against Jessica. Jessica, not physical harm, but the complete dismantling of everything she had built through her deception. The exposure of every lie, every scheme, every manipulation, financial ruin, public disgrace, professional destruction. The law won't fail, he said finally, not with the evidence we're about to secure. As they approached the bank, Frank slowed the vehicle, his experienced eyes scanning the surrounding area. Something's not right, he observed, nodding toward a dark sedan parked across from the bank. That car has been there too long with no movement. Michael followed his gaze. The sedan's windows were tinted, making it impossible to see if anyone was inside. Circle the block, he instructed. Let's see if we can spot anything else suspicious. As they rounded the corner, Caldwell suddenly pointed to a figure hurrying away from the bank's service entrance. That's Kraus. Frank accelerated slightly, keeping pace with the retreating figure while maintaining a discreet distance. The man matched Rebecca's description, tall, broad-shouldered, with a distinctive scar visible on his right hand as he spoke into his cell phone. He's already been inside, Michael realized with growing alarm. Frank, get us to the main entrance now. The bank manager, an anxious man in his 50s, was waiting as arranged, visibly relieved, when Michael's SUV pulled up. Mr. Reynolds, thank goodness, he greeted as Michael and Caldwell hurried from the vehicle. I was beginning to worry. There was an incident earlier. What incident? Michael interrupted sharply. The manager wrung his hands. A man claiming to be from the Federal Banking Commission demanded access to the vault area for an emergency audit. When our staff requested proper identification, he became threatening. Security escorted him out, but he claimed he'd return with a warrant. Did he access any safety deposit boxes? Caldwell asked urgently. No, sir. Our protocols require both registered keys for access regardless of any claimed authority. Relief washed through Michael, quickly tempered by caution. We need to access Box 897 immediately. Inside the vault, Caldwell produced his key with trembling fingers. We still need Mercer's key, he reminded Michael unnecessarily. Not necessarily, Michael replied, withdrawing a court order from his jacket pocket. Emergency access authorization signed by Judge Harrington an hour ago. It allows the bank to use their emergency override in the presence of the single key holder and proper identification. The manager examined the document carefully before nodding. This appears to be in order, Mr. Reynolds. I'll fetch the master key. Minutes later, they stood before the open safety deposit box. Inside was a single USB drive, several folders of financial records, and a sealed envelope addressed to Michael. Is this everything? Michael asked, concerned by the relatively small amount of material. Mercer was methodical, Caldwell explained. The USB contains encrypted files, transaction records, account numbers, communication logs. The physical documents are certified copies of key evidence. And that, he pointed to the envelope, is something Rebecca asked Mercer to prepare for you specifically. Michael opened the envelope, finding a detailed letter from Robert Mercer outlining his findings regarding Jessica Hayes and her financial operations. The document was notarized and formatted as a formal deposition, providing a roadmap to the criminal activity hidden within Reynolds Enterprises. According to Mercer's investigation, Jessica had been approached by international money launderers shortly after beginning her relationship with Michael. Her position as CFO made her an ideal conduit for their operations. What began as a single transaction expanded into a systematic operation involving multiple projects and substantial sums. This is enough to put her away for decades, Michael observed, grimly scanning the document. If we can get it to the authorities before she realizes we have it, Caldwell agreed. As they carefully packed the evidence into Michael's briefcase, his phone rang an unknown number. Reynolds, he answered cautiously. Mr. Reynolds, this is Robert Mercer. The voice was tense but controlled. I assume you're with Caldwell at the bank. Where have you been? Michael demanded. Caldwell has been trying to reach you. I had to go dark, Mercer explained. Jessica Hayes sent people after me yesterday. I've been evading them, but it's getting complicated. I needed to make sure they didn't follow me to you or the evidence. We've secured the financial records, Michael informed him. I'm taking them directly to federal authorities. That won't be necessary, Mercer replied. I've arranged a meeting with FBI financial crimes investigators at a secure location. They're prepared to take custody of the evidence and initiate proceedings immediately. Michael hesitated, suspicion flaring. How did you arrange this without contacting Caldwell or me? I've maintained back-channel communications with former colleagues, Mercer explained. It was safer than risking compromised phones. The meeting is set for midnight at the Harbor Point Warehouse Complex, loading Dock 12. The location raised immediate red flags in Michael's mind. Isolated, difficult to secure, limited escape routes. Send me official FBI credentials for these agents, Michael countered. I'll have my security team verify them before any meeting. There was a brief pause. Of course, I'll forward them immediately, but Mr. Reynolds' time is critical. Hayes is making arrangements to leave the country. We need to move quickly. After ending the call, Michael turned to Caldwell. Did that sound legitimate to you? Caldwell frowned. Mercer is cautious, but this feels wrong. The warehouse district, middle of the night. That's not how the FBI operates, especially with high-value financial evidence. My thoughts exactly. Michael agreed, already dialing his head of security. I want background checks on Robert Mercer run immediately. Full-spectrum professional history, financial records, recent movements. And I want surveillance on Harbor Point Warehouse Complex loading Dock 12. As they exited the bank, Michael's vigilance was at maximum. Frank drove evasively, taking a circuitous route back toward the penthouse, watching carefully for any sign of pursuit. The supposed FBI credentials Mercer promised haven't arrived, Michael observed, after 20 minutes, his suspicion deepening. Caldwell looked increasingly troubled. What if Jessica got to him? Turned him somehow? Or what if he was always working for her, Michael suggested darkly. A double agent feeding information to both sides. The possibility hung heavily between them as Frank continued the careful journey through Boston's rain-slicked streets. Michael's phone rang again, the penthouse security team. His heart rate immediately accelerated. Reynolds? Sir, we have a situation, the head of security reported tensely. 2 men attempted to breach the service entrance. They were intercepted, but not before disabling the exterior cameras on the south side. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. Rebecca and Emma. Secure, sir. We've moved them to the panic room as a precaution. Mrs. Davis insisted on taking essential medical equipment with them. Relief mingled with rage in Michael's veins. I'm 15 minutes out. Maintain maximum alert. As he ended the call, another came through his investigative team. Sir, we've completed the background check on Robert Mercer. There are significant discrepancies. The real Robert Mercer, former FBI financial crimes specialist, died in a boating accident 3 years ago in Florida. The revelation hit like a physical blow. And the man working with Rebecca and Caldwell, unknown identity. He's been using Mercer's credentials, professional history, and reputation. Very sophisticated identity theft. Michael turned to Caldwell, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand its implications. You've been working with an imposter for years. Caldwell looked genuinely shocked, the color draining from his face. That's impossible. He knew things only an FBI agent would know. He had contacts, resources. Or he made you believe he did, Michael countered. The perfect con: insert yourself between desperate people and the information they need, become indispensable, gain their trust, and wait for the optimal moment to betray them. But why? Caldwell demanded. What would be the point of such an elaborate deception? Michael's mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots, seeing the larger pattern. The evidence, the financial evidence he helped compile against Jessica. What if it's been manipulated? What if crucial details have been changed or omitted? Caldwell looked horrified as the implications sank in. If we present false evidence to federal authorities, we become the criminals, Michael finished grimly. And Jessica walks away clean. Michael immediately called his legal team, instructing them to have forensic financial experts standing by to authenticate every document before it went to authorities. As they approached the penthouse building, Michael's phone rang again, the unknown number identified as Mercer. "Where are those FBI credentials?" Michael demanded without preamble. "There's been a complication," the man claiming to be Mercer replied. "The agents were called to another location. The meeting has been moved to—" "Stop," Michael interrupted coldly. "Robert Mercer died 3 years ago in Florida. Whoever you are, whatever game you're playing, it's over." A long silence followed, then a chuckle entirely devoid of humor. "Well played, Reynolds. I underestimated you." "Who are you really?" Michael pressed. "One of Jessica's associates." "I'm whoever I need to be to get the job done," the man replied cryptically. "Sometimes I'm an ex-FBI agent. Sometimes I'm a financial consultant. Right now, I'm the man holding all the cards in this particular game." "What game is that?" "The one where Jessica Hayes walks away clean and you take the fall for a sophisticated money laundering operation run through your company. The evidence you're holding expertly modified to implicate you rather than her." Michael's jaw tightened. "Why, what's your connection to Jessica?" "Let's just say we have mutual interests and leave it at that. Here's what happens next, Reynolds. You turn over all evidence materials to me, the real files and the doctored ones. In exchange, the men currently positioned around your building stand down." "You're bluffing," Michael stated flatly, though a chill ran through him. "My security team has the building locked down." Perhaps the false Mercer acknowledged. "But are you willing to gamble with the lives of Rebecca and your newly discovered daughter Kraus can be quite thorough when motivated." Rage surged through Michael, but he kept his voice controlled. "If anything happens to them, then make sure it doesn't," the imposter cut in. "Bring the evidence to the original meeting location. Come alone. You have 1 hour." The call ended abruptly. Michael immediately contacted his security team at the penthouse, instructing them to move Rebecca and Emma to an even more secure location, a hidden panic room on the building's 38th floor that wasn't on any official blueprints, accessible only through Michael's private elevator with biometric authentication. "We can't trust this evidence," Michael told Caldwell, gesturing to the briefcase. "But we can't hand it over either." "What's the plan?" Caldwell asked, his earlier fear now replaced with grim determination. Michael's mind worked rapidly, weighing options and risks. "We need to trap them all. Jessica, this fake Mercer, Kraus, all of them with incontrovertible evidence of their crimes. Not financial records that can be disputed or manipulated, but direct evidence of criminal conspiracy." How? A dangerous smile crossed Michael's face, the same expression that had preceded some of his most audacious business maneuvers. "We're going to give them exactly what they want and record every moment of it." Back at the penthouse, Michael found Rebecca and Emma in the hidden panic room, a comfortable space designed to sustain occupants for days if necessary, equipped with food, water, medical supplies, and communications equipment. Emma ran to him immediately, throwing her arms around his waist. "You came back." "I promised I would," Michael reminded her, hugging her tightly before turning to Rebecca. "How are you feeling?" Rebecca looked pale but composed. "I've been better. What's happening, Michael?" Michael hesitated, glancing at Emma, reluctant to speak freely in front of the child. Reading his concern, Rebecca turned to her daughter. "Emma, sweetheart, why don't you explore this amazing room? Look, there's a special bed that comes out of the wall and a refrigerator with juice and snacks." Once Emma was happily investigating the panic room's features, Michael explained the situation in hushed tones, the false Mercer, the compromised evidence, the threats surrounding the building. "They want you to deliver the evidence personally." Rebecca concluded, her expression grave. "It's a trap." "Almost certainly," Michael agreed, "but it's also our opportunity to catch them all red-handed." "It's too dangerous," Rebecca protested. "These aren't just corporate rivals, Michael. These are professional criminals, killers." "I won't actually be going alone," Michael assured her. "I've contacted federal authorities, the real FBI. They're positioning agents around the meeting location as we speak. Every word, every threat will be recorded and witnessed." Rebecca still looked unconvinced. "And if something goes wrong, if they realize it's a setup?" Michael took her hand, noting how frail it felt in his. "Then the agents move in immediately. I'll be wearing a wire and a tracker. Every precaution is being taken." "What about Emma?" Rebecca asked, her voice breaking slightly. "If something happens to you, to both of us, what becomes of her?" The question struck Michael deeply. In the whirlwind of the past 48 hours, he hadn't considered the practical implications of their dangerous situation for Emma's future. I've already contacted my lawyers, he said quietly. They've drawn up emergency guardianship papers. If anything happens to us, Sarah Wilson will take temporary custody until permanent arrangements can be made with my sister in California. Tears filled Rebecca's eyes. You've thought of everything. I'm trying, Michael admitted. This isn't just about exposing Jessica anymore. It's about securing Emma's future, our future, if you'll allow it. Rebecca looked up sharply, questions in her eyes, but Michael continued before she could speak. I know it's soon. Too soon, perhaps. We've been apart for 7 years, and we're different people now. But these past 2 days have reminded me of what I lost, what was taken from us. I'm not suggesting we simply pick up where we left off, but I am asking for a chance to rebuild. For Emma's sake, and perhaps for our own. Rebecca's expression softened. Michael, Their moment was interrupted by Frank's entrance. Sir, everything is in place. The FBI team is ready. We need to depart in 15 minutes to make the meeting time. Michael nodded acknowledgement, turning back to Rebecca. We'll continue this conversation when I return. Promise about foreigners, Rebecca asked an echo of Emma's earlier plea. Michael leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Promise. Emma rushed over as he prepared to leave. Are you going to catch the bad people now? Michael knelt to her level. That's the plan, but I need you to be brave and stay here with your mom. Keep her company and make sure she takes her medicine on time. Can you do that for me? Emma nodded solemnly. I'm good at taking care of Mom. I know you are. Michael smiled, touched by her responsibility and strength. I'll be back before you know it. As he stood to leave, Emma suddenly grabbed his hand. Wait. She rushed to her backpack and retrieved the drawing she'd been working on earlier, the picture of their future home. Take this, for luck. Michael accepted the drawing, carefully folding it and placing it in his inside jacket pocket over his heart. The best luck charm possible, he assured her. The warehouse district loomed dark and foreboding as Michael's car approached the designated meeting point. He was alone as requested, though a fleet of unmarked FBI vehicles had moved into position around the perimeter, their presence invisible in the shadowy industrial landscape. Loading Dock 12 was illuminated by a single security light, casting more shadows than illumination. Michael parked where instructed, taking the briefcase containing the evidence and stepping into the pool of yellow light. Right on time, came a voice from the darkness. The man who called himself Mercer emerged, followed by Martin Krause and another armed associate. Where's Jessica? Michael demanded. Maintaining plausible deniability, the false Mercer replied with a thin smile. Did you bring the evidence, all of it? Michael raised the briefcase slightly. Everything from the safety deposit box, plus copies of what my lawyers already have. Place it on the ground and step back. Krause instructed, his hand resting suggestively on the weapon holstered beneath his jacket. Not until I have assurances about Rebecca and Emma, Michael countered. The men around my building, I want them gone. The imposter chuckled. You're in no position to make demands, Reynolds. I'm in exactly the position to make demands, Michael replied evenly. You don't get this evidence without my cooperation. And I don't cooperate until I know my family is safe. The standoff stretched for several tense seconds before the false Mercer nodded slightly. He made a call, speaking briefly before turning back to Michael. They're withdrawing, satisfied. Michael's expression remained hard. I'll need verification. Your concern is touching, came a new voice as Jessica Hayes stepped from the shadows. Who would have thought Michael Reynolds, Boston's most cold-blooded businessman, would develop such paternal instincts overnight? Jessica looked impeccable as always, though there was a brittle quality to her composure now, a hint of desperation beneath the polished exterior. It's over, Jessica, Michael said quietly. The money laundering operation, the threats, all of it. Whatever happens tonight, you've already lost. Have I? Jessica's smile was razor sharp. Because from where I stand, you're alone in a warehouse with armed men holding evidence that, if examined closely, implicates you in every financial crime committed through Reynolds Enterprises over the past 7 years. Is that what your friend here told you? Michael nodded toward the false Mercer. That he successfully altered the evidence to frame me? A flash of uncertainty crossed Jessica's face. What are you talking about? Your associate's expertise is impressive, but not infallible, Michael explained. The modifications were detectable, Crude actually once you knew to look for them. The imposter's expression hardened. He's bluffing. The alterations are seamless. Are they? Michael challenged. Did you really think I wouldn't have my own financial forensics experts examine everything, that I wouldn't have backup copies of the original files? Doubt crept into Jessica's eyes as she glanced at her accomplice. You assured me the evidence was neutralized. It is, the man insisted, though his confidence appeared to waver. Enough, Krause interrupted impatiently. We're wasting time. Give us the briefcase, Reynolds. Michael made a show of reluctance before slowly placing the briefcase on the ground and stepping back. There it is, everything you wanted. The false mercer moved forward, kneeling to open the case. His satisfaction at seeing the files inside was palpable. Finally, he murmured, rifling through the documents. Tell me something, Michael said conversationally, buying time for the FBI team to move closer. Was any of it true, Rebecca's investigation into Jessica's finances? Or was that part of the con too? The imposter looked up, a smug smile playing at his lips. Oh, the investigation was real. Jessica really did use Reynolds Enterprises for money laundering. I simply ensured the evidence pointed in multiple directions, creating reasonable doubt. Now with these modified files, you become the primary suspect. And Jessica walks away clean, Michael concluded. What did she promise you? Money, a new identity? Both, the man admitted, plus a percentage of ongoing operations. Jessica stepped forward, visibly agitated. This conversation is unnecessary. We have what we came for. Not quite, Michael countered. You have doctored evidence that won't stand up to expert scrutiny. What you don't have is my silence. Jessica's laugh was brittle. Your silence, Michael, by this time tomorrow, you'll be fighting federal charges. Your word against ours, backed by seemingly legitimate evidence. Who do you think wins that battle? The truth usually prevails, Michael replied calmly, especially when the entire conversation is being recorded by federal agents surrounding this building right now. The revelation landed like a thunderbolt. Krause immediately drew his weapon while the false mercer frantically gathered the documents back into the briefcase. He's bluffing, Jessica insisted, though panic had begun to edge her voice. There's no one here but us. FBI, hands up, weapons down. The commanding shout came simultaneously from multiple directions as agents emerged from hiding places throughout the warehouse, weapons trained on the group. What followed was controlled chaos. Krause foolishly attempted to raise his weapon and was immediately subdued. The false mercer tried to flee with the briefcase but was tackled by two agents before he could take 3 steps. Jessica stood frozen, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. As agents secured the scene, Special Agent Diana Foster approached Michael. Well played, Mr. Reynolds. We have everything we need: conspiracy, extortion, admission of evidence, tampering, and the money laundering confession. And Jessica, Michael asked, watching as his former partner was handcuffed and read her rights. Looking at 15 to 20 years minimum, Foster confirmed. The financial crimes alone would be substantial, but adding attempted extortion, conspiracy, and using Krause to threaten a witness, the prosecutor will have a field day. Jessica's eyes met Michael's across the warehouse floor, hatred and defeat warring in her expression. This isn't over, she called out as agents led her away. You have no idea what you've done, who you've crossed. Michael approached her, stopping just outside arm's reach. I know exactly what I've done. I've protected my family, the family you tried to destroy. Whatever connections you have, whatever threats you make, remember this: I will always be watching. I will always be one step ahead. Emma and Rebecca will never have reason to fear you again. As Jessica was escorted to a waiting vehicle, Michael felt a profound sense of closure. The immediate danger had passed. The evidence, both the doctored files and recordings of tonight's confessions, would ensure Jessica faced justice for her crimes. But more importantly, the path forward was now clear. Rebecca and Emma were safe. The future he had glimpsed in Emma's drawing, a home, a family, a second chance, was no longer just a child's hopeful imagination, but a genuine possibility. Michael pulled out his phone, dialing the panic room's secure line. When Rebecca answered, the relief in her voice was palpable. It's over, he told her simply. They're in custody. We're safe. All of them. Jessica, the fake Mercer, Krause, all of them, Michael confirmed. The FBI has everything they need for prosecution. Rebecca's exhale was audible even through the phone. Thank God. How's Emma? Asleep, finally. She tried to stay awake until you called, but it's been a long day. Michael smiled, picturing his daughter curled up safely in sleep. Tell her I'll be there when she wakes up. And Rebecca, yes. About our conversation earlier, I meant what I said. When this is all settled, when you're feeling stronger, I want us to try. Not just for Emma's sake, but for ours. The silence that followed wasn't rejection, but consideration, the thoughtful pause of a woman who had learned to weigh her choices carefully. I'd like that, she said finally, her voice soft with emotion. We have a lot of lost time to make up for. As Michael ended the call and looked up at the night sky now clearing to reveal stars above Boston's skyline, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine hope. The road ahead would not be easy. Rebecca's health remained precarious. Emma would need time to adjust to her new reality. The legal aftermath of Jessica's crimes would ripple through Reynolds Enterprises for months to come. But for the first time in a decade, Michael Reynolds wasn't facing these challenges alone. He had found his purpose again, not in building skyscrapers or amassing wealth, but in protecting the two people who had unexpectedly become the center of his world. A second chance, a new beginning, a family reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal. Michael reached into his pocket, touching Emma's drawing, their future home waiting to be built. Not with concrete and steel, but with love, trust, and the unbreakable bonds of family. He was at last the guardian they needed, the guardian he was always meant to be.